Hello guys, welcome to this tutorial on unseen poetry. So this is from the AQA's GCSE English Literature Paper 2, Section C. You know, that point in the paper where you've been writing already for an hour and a half on modern literature and either power and conflict or love and relationships, and you're exhausted and you've got to do another question. So you've got to just keep that motivation going, because 2¼ hours is definitely a solid kind of exam to be pushing through. But I've had a few requests lately for a video on unseen poetry, and what I want to focus on today is revision and planning and preparing for it, and we'll do another tutorial when I look at kind of writing up a response and what that should look like to get sort of high marks on that. So the first thing that I would want to say about this exam is something along the sense of reassuring people. You are looking at these, they're probably going to be question 27.1 and 27.2. So you've got this wodge of booklet to get through, and just remember you're going to have to do both of these questions at the end. And so you're going to have this focus on, the first question is going to look at how a particular theme or idea is presented in one poem, and then that second 8-mark question is going to get you to do some comparison. But what I would be saying is, you know, some of my class in the trial exams have been absolutely shattered by they've gotten to this and had no time to do it. But it is only worth 8 marks. So compared to this one, which is a 24 marker, please don't get yourself in a sort of stressed out state about this. You know, worst case scenario, you don't even get onto it. It's only 8 marks out of a paper worth, you know, a huge amount. So, and definitely, you know, keep it to 10 minutes. Spend your 35 minutes or so on this question, because it's worth 3 times the amount, isn't it? Is my maths right there? Is that 3 times? Not sure. Right, okay, so in terms of what this question is going to ask you to do, it will ask you, as I say, about a poet presenting a particular theme. So the one we're going to look at today is motherhood. And a reminder that what you're going to be assessed on is AO1 and AO2. So this is your ability to put together a critical response to something. And really, this is some of the top level stuff about judicious references. This means the examples you've picked are well thought out and they fit into your argument, and that there's a structure to it. Now, structured arguments, it sounds a bit ambiguous and it's a bit vague, but it means, you know, have you got a point that you can see through to its conclusion? A helpful way is to either look at the beginning, middle and end of a poem, or to focus on something like the subject style structure, which we'll look at in our planning today. But at the heart of this, it's you analysing language, form and structure. It's, yes, some terminology, although that's not going to get you as many marks as other things. But can you pick out things that a writer does and then think about the effects of those methods on readers? How do we respond? How do we feel? How do we think? What does it provoke in us as readers? And you know, what is this poet trying to do? What they're trying to get across to us? That's the heart of what you're doing. And you know, I would be aiming for my students for 24 marks to be doing 3 really kind of developed points. Now this may be, you know, this is not 3p paragraphs, but this is having 3 main ideas that they centre in on, and that those get developed using probably that Peel style structure that I went through on with the Macbeth example. But in terms of what you would be doing and preparing for this exam on the 26th of May, soon, what I'd start doing is pestering your teachers and asking them for some example poems that you can just plan for and sort of play around with a bit. So here's one I made earlier. Look at this. It is all technology here at Mrs. Whelan's English. And so what I'd be focusing on is just getting a poem, something you've never seen before. Maybe if you do power and conflict, you look at some poems from the other cluster in your anthology, or vice versa. But equally, you know, have a look on poetrysoup.com or Poem Hunter, or just put in contemporary poems about being a teenager and see what you can find that's out there. And what I would be doing is just spending, you know, 5-10 minutes, a couple of times a week, just looking at a poem and thinking, what different things can I say about it? So pause the video now, so I'm not reading through it like in boredom, but pause the video now and have a read through this poem. and be asking yourself, what are the main ideas in this? What is the poet trying to get sort of convey in terms of the subject? What are the themes and ideas of this poem? So just pause now and have a look yourself through this poem. Okay, so I'm imagining that you've had a look through that and you've got a strong idea that this is really a poem that focuses on sort of maternal anxiety. This is that classic thing that your mum will have where she worries like mad that you're not home, and all of the love that that mums have for their kids, and all the anxiety when they're out about in the house, out of the house, when they're not safely there at home, what could be happening. So what I would always do, as I say, I'm thinking about subject, style and structure, but I'm also thinking about how does this poem start and develop and end. So what I'd be doing in my, if it was me, if I was 15 or 16 and revising for this exam, I'd just start looking for some techniques and really thinking about what things I can find. So let's look at that opening. Highlighters run out, what are the odds? Bear with me. That's going to run out as well. Oh. Right, okay, so let's just take that first line, you're late. We see here that there's an example of caesura, that pause, middle of the line, and it's middle of the first line of the poem, you're late. What then does that particular impact sentence that we begin with, what tone does that create? Well, hopefully you're thinking, like I am, that there's a sense of worry, maybe anger, the idea that someone should have been back by a particular time, you're late. So in terms of how is motherhood presented, straight away we know that mums often are, wanting their kids home by a particular time, and this immediately conveys some of the worry or anger or maybe frustration that this mum has. So it goes on in this first stanza, doesn't it? Take a chance at the cul-de-sac shortcut home, it's the side way back, the way they tell you not to go, the way the kids and stray cats know, is loved by Ali, dead dog lane, the council says it's got no name, all the same. So what are some of the worries that this mum has? Well, loved by Ali, aye, dead dog lane. It feels like quite a rough place, doesn't it? Somewhere that this mum does not want their child being exposed to, whether it's sort of the first flush of love and romance, or whether it's, violent, unpleasant acts that are happening. But we see that this child, that this mother's child is becoming increasingly independent. They are going the way they tell you not to go. So we get a sense of rebellion, which I'm sure none of you watching could relate to, but still. So this mum, they're filled with anxiety. They're worried that things might happen. There's an independence and a rebellion to the child here. So the stanzas kind of develop, and really we get sort of an intensifying fear and anxiety as we go through here. So I'm drawn to some of the anaphora. You might just call it repetition, it's fine. Repetition, but anaphora, that repeating of the first line there. And the mum goes on to list a number of different problems, different injuries that their child could have. They could get scratched, there's no one there to hear. They really are identifying a number of dangers that the child could experience. It's a narrow and narrowing one-way street. And again, some more repetition here to reinforce really the level of danger. You've seen the scuffed out tips of their fags, you've smelt something wrong in their polythene bags, there's a snuffle and a scratching at a blanked up gate, there's a footstep you don't hear till almost too late, don't wait. So in this, I'm looking here structurally, in this rhyming section here, and then again this this kind of very short impact sentence, we get this increased pace, and then this sort of punchy, don't wait, this imperative, isn't it? This command to the child, don't hang around where all of this dangerous stuff could happen. And there's an idea as well that this mum's child is quite innocent, and they might have seen and smelt these things that the other rougher kids are doing, but haven't participated themselves yet. So some of what the poet's doing here is presenting motherhood as being this time of huge worry and anxiety where you are fearful of what may be happening to your child out on the streets, the number of temptations and things available to them. So we've got all of this, these three stanzas, a number of different things we could look at there. Now you're off and you're running for years and years with a hissing panic of rain in your ears. You run till you're old, you could run till you're gone and never get home to slow down and walk on. It's harder still to stand back. Though it's slow as a Chinese burn, you'll learn. So the mum here is almost, there's a fantasy sequence here of the child's life experiences. And as a result, there's this declarative at the end here. The mum knows through experience that all of these things are going to happen. Get that simile, slow as a Chinese burn, really conveying for the reader that that childhood and growing up and becoming an adult, you may not realise what the world's like immediately, but it will sort of come upon you slowly, and the mum knows because she's experienced that you will learn. You're going to learn about what the world's really like. So it depends. We've got a number of perspectives here. We could say that this is all about the mum. Sorry, the shadow's really rubbish today. 1 second. I'm blind. I don't know if it's going to make things better or worse. Let's have a look. So we could talk about the mum being loving, caring. We could talk about motherhood as being an anxious and fearful time. We could also, maybe from your perspective a little bit more as well, as young people, we're probably watching this, that maybe the mum is kind of neurotic and a bit obsessed. So we've got a number of different alternative interpretations there about the mum. So me and my revision, I'd be doing this kind of thing, really just focusing on what is the poet conveying. In my exam, what I would try and do, what I tell my class is to read through a poem 3 times. Just read it once to start with, what's going on in there. Then read again, have you really understood the meaning? 3rd time through, have a look and see what kind of techniques and things you can find. Then what I would be doing is, and here's another one I've made earlier, is, you can do this electronically if you want. You can just go old school like I've done here, and you can write something up. But this idea of, you're not going to have a huge amount of time in your exam to plan. Oh, sorry, my light's rubbish today. Okay, you don't have a huge amount of time to plan, but you can briefly think about subject, style, structure, and you can be thinking about, even if your planning is in your head, you can be considering these. But whilst you are doing your revision, obviously you can do a lot more with this. So I would just start making some notes under these headings: subject, style, and structure. So what is the poem about? It's about growing up, but the focus here is on the anxiety for mums. It's about being protective of children. It's about maybe a sense of neuroses, motherhood being a neurotic time, a time that is frightening and fearful for mums. So that's what some of our themes and ideas are. In terms of style, well, what do we know that we've seen stylistically in this poem? Well, we know that we've got the simile, slow as a Chinese burn. And we've got, let's have a look, we've got some sibilance when we've got this section here, the scuffed out tips of fags, smells, snuffle and scratching. So we've got some sibilance there. We've got some, a bit of everything, haven't we really? We've got some listing. We've got some names here, Love by Ali, Dead Dog Lane. So there's lots of different things we could incorporate here into the mood as well. So the mood is one of fear, and concern. Let's have a look. There's another description I want to get. There's some nice ambiguity when it talks here about the snuffle and the scratching at a planked up gate. So we don't know what that is. It could be some vicious dog, a footstep you don't hear till almost too late. Again, we've got the ambiguity, which helps to convey the whole range of threats available to young people and teenagers, or the perceived threats, the things their mums think are going to be out there getting them. And then in terms of structure, well, we've talked about already through our annotations the use of caesura to convey that worry and maybe anger at the start of the poem. We've talked about there's use of anaphora, there's blah blah blah. So as the mum lists all the dangers, you've got these kind of impact imperatives such as don't wait, and you'll learn. You learn is actually a declarative. Sorry, my handwriting's actually dreadful today. Apologies for that. So a brief bit of planning, subject, style and structure will give you everything you need to answer this question. You're not comparing, you don't bring in context, you're purely picking things out that the poet does to explore a particular theme or idea. Now, if it was my class, what I'd say to them now at this point is you're going to do 3 developed P points. This is going to be your first one, this is going to be your second one, and this is going to be your third P point. If you're not keen on these as headings, what you can just do is focus on how is motherhood presented at the start of the poem, in the middle of the poem, and at the end of the poem. Again, using all of these ideas around subject, style and structure. So in the next tutorial that's going to follow on, I'm going to use this planning to write up what will hopefully be a developed peel point that would enable me to get full marks where I do in this exam. Okay, thanks for watching.